गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। We are in Amrit Anubhav, chapter 2, Shri Guru Stavana, and we are on OV number 23. Last week we saw in detail how the Bhutakash, Chittakash and Chidakash, all these are nothing but one, and this Chidakash, the conscious space, it is complete, it is one without a second. In that the Chittakash and the Bhutakash is imagined, and nothing can be added or subtracted from the Chidakash, the conscious space. And in this way, and it is the support of all the variety, all the multiplicity. Even though it is supporting and everything is, it is supporting everything, but yet it is beyond everything. It is transcendental, it's unaffected, and therefore it is solid space. And now we come to the 23rd verse. How the glory of the Guru Maharaj, the pure consciousness, functions through every point of expression is expressed in the next OV. So in the previous verse, we came to the source. Now how this source is everything, not just supporting. Water is not just supporting ocean and the wave. It is permeating the ocean and the wave. Ocean and the wave have no existence at all, no identity possible without the water. In fact, they are nothing but the water. Exactly the same way, this Chidakash, this Guru principle is not only supporting everything but also everything. So what is that? The verse OV says, Chandra esi sushitale घडिली जयाचे निमेळे सूर्य जयाचे नि उजाळे कडवसेनी. He says, His glory manifests as cool moonlight on one hand and as bright sunlight on the other. He, because of whom the cool moonlight is the glory of the moon, and he, because of whom the brightness of the sun is expressed, is the Guru Maharaj. See how beautiful. Rather than getting lost, our understanding only goes to this point, that the sun's rays illuminate the moon, and because it is the reflected light on the moon, therefore it is not the moon's original light, therefore it is cool. But here we are going one step further, that this Chidakash, this Guru Maharaj, this absolute reality, this solid space that the Guru Maharaj is itself is giving the coolness to the moon and also the brightness to the sun. So adhyatmically, the sun is the right eye and moon is the left eye, because the whole universe is included within this body. So some scriptures say that. Not some scriptures, all scriptures say that in every atom the entire universe is already included. So when we consider ourselves to the body, this is who I feel I am. So then where is the sun and the moon? The right eye is the sun, the left eye is the moon. The consciousness is functioning through every point in the world, including ourselves. So there is no place that the consciousness is not. Consciousness is not only inside this body at some point, somewhere, and it is not outside there. No. It is not that the water is expressing only in the wave and the wave is doing meditation and it is introverted and it is single pointed and it is focused. Oh, I am the water, I am the water, I am the water, I am the water. And then what does it realize? That it was always the water. And that water, its nature is infinite. It is not limited. The material that has gone into making the wave is nothing but water. Exactly the same way, the material that has gone into making this creation of names and forms is nothing but that existence. That I am. There can be two perceptions, one of consciousness itself and the other of its functioning. When the latter, that is the functioning, is the focus of attention, the world of plurality and the misery is the result. Meaning, whatever its expression, whatever is the expression of the vibhuti of this indivisible principle of this Guru Maharaj, when our attention is on the vibhuti and our mind is continuously extroverted thinking about the manyness, it leads to misery and bondage. It leads to our peace is hijacked as a result. By constant abhyasa, that is practice, the spiritual seeker learns to focus attention on this consciousness which supports all expressions. Today we did that, isn't it, in meditation? That we are the center. We are the witness. Activity is going on, let it go on. Why you become the doer of activity? There is no doer. It is the imagination that I am the doer. Water doesn't make a wave come and go. Water is water. Similarly, just like we as individuals, we are not making the eyes blink. Just now I scratched myself. Automatically the hand went because there is some disturbance there. But I didn't say that now, oh, how can I, now I have to take my hand to that point and scratch and then come back. Now you come back here. No. Breathing is happening by itself. Activity. Heartbeat is going on by itself. Activity. Hiccups, they come by themselves. Sneeze comes by itself. You don't make a decision to do all these things. So therefore, these are involuntary actions without the involvement of the doership. Now to recognize that every activity in our, as an individual, every activity that is going on, and activity only goes on at the equipment level, body, breath, mind, intellect. All activity that is going on, it is involuntary. Then alone you can be the center. So this attempt that I am, here it says that by constant abhyasa, the spiritual seeker learns to focus attention on this consciousness which supports all expression. It's a misnomer, because how can the eyes put attention on themselves? Yet they can. And what happens in that process? Right now the eyes are extrovert, they are looking at all the world of forms. And when we say that make an attempt by the eyes to see themselves, and when you see, try to see them, to see your own eyes, all the forms start melting into a soup, and eventually eyes will close. Same way, when the mind starts putting attention on the conscious principle or the center, then it automatically, all the variety of thoughts, stimuli that have come through the senses or from within, they start dissolving, and eventually the mind gets absorbed into the conscious principle. In fact, mind is nothing but consciousness. Ocean is nothing but the infinite waters. Mind is nothing but infinite consciousness. So mind you consider as the ocean, total waters. And waves are in it. So same way, the thoughts are in the mind. But everything is consciousness. You have to recognize that you have never become less because mind has come into existence. You have never become less because thoughts have come into existence. You have never become less because body has come into existence. You have never become less because father, mother, daughter, sister, these roles have come out of you. You have not become less. You are still the same, the undisturbed, the support of all. See? Right now we don't have the vision that whatever I see, I am seeing myself. You don't have that vision. You see everything separate to yourself, isn't it? And because of this obsession with separation, we feel persecuted. We find it difficult. We create a journey because of our obsession with the world. Oh, it is so difficult to give up the world. Oh, it is so difficult to give up the body. Oh, it is so difficult to get up in the morning. Oh, it is so difficult, I am getting old. Oh, it is so... And what is a yogi or the Mahatma or the Guru Maharaj? What is he thinking? Is he complaining? Oh, because of the body I can't, because of the food I can't, because of the day I can't, because it's so cold I can't, because it's so early in the morning I can't. No. What is his disposition? I am all that there is. So there is nothing for me to do. There is nothing, nowhere for me to go. There is nothing for me to withdraw from. That is his disposition. If you start saying, if you can take, we will become very conveniently we use, oh, then I don't have to withdraw from anything. And then you have to accept other points also. Then he doesn't have to, he says, I am not the doer. I don't have to withdraw from everything. I am all that there is. You can't just take one of them and say, oh, then I don't have to withdraw from my family and I don't have to withdraw from the world. you take the whole package. You can't say I am going to only take this part of the package. The rest of the package I am not going to take. No, when you go on a tour, you have to take the package. So here, by constant abhyasa, the spiritual seeker learns to focus attention on this consciousness which supports all expressions. Now remember, when we say focus attention, who is putting the focus? The I. Who is consciousness? The I. So I, through the thoughts, is trying to put, initially thinks that I have to put attention on myself. Just like when we made the statement, make your eyes become aware of themselves. So it is a thought. So same thing, we have to keep trying on the seat of meditation. Why only on the seat of meditation? Even when we are moving around, be the center. Be the source. Be aware continuously that everything that is happening because you are. Not as the body. You are. As the thoughts are happening because you are. The breath is happening because you are. Speaking is happening because you are. Listening is happening because I am. See? And initially it is difficult. You will miss the point many times, but as the days go by, you will hone into yourself. Without too much effort, you will be with yourself all the time. Just like when you got married, to understand, to carry out the roles of a husband or a wife, you missed. And then there were clashes, then there were friction. But over a period of time, it became normal. Same way with being a parent. Practice, 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 practice. And this practice doesn't require to be yourself. The practice doesn't require only to be on the seat of meditation. While washing dishes, do it with awareness. Awareness not of the dishes. Awareness of yourself, in whose presence this dishwashing is going on. Right now, I am speaking. Be aware in whose presence the talk is going on, in whose presence the listening is going on. This awareness can be practiced everywhere all the time. But practice is required. A conscious attention has to be shifted towards it. By grace of God, by grace of God, when it will happen? Yeah, it will happen. Maybe it will not happen. Because grace is flowing all the time. It is only available to those who are thinking about it or available to it. Same way, this Guru Maharaj, this consciousness is always present. It is available to those who contemplate upon it, who think about it, who give attention to it, who become available to it, who give importance to it. See? So focus attention on this consciousness which supports all expressions, pleasant and unpleasant. Coming to this center, coming to this pure consciousness that I am, it doesn't mean that only goody things. No. All the good and the bad are supported by this consciousness, and it alone is expressing through the good and as well as the bad, through the pleasant and the unpleasant, through the beautiful and the ugly, through the Daivi Sampatti and the Asurik Sampatti. 16th chapter Bhagavad Gita. Because this Guru Maharaj is this consciousness is the all-inclusive principle. So you cannot have the asuri vritti or the unpleasantness or the ugliness outside this consciousness. No, everything is pervaded by it, everything is supported by it, as a result of which everything else becomes secondary. When we bring our attention to this consciousness, when we bring our attention of the eye, of the vision, from the outwards to its own, to the eyeballs, all the forms start melting away. Same way, when we bring the attention of the mind onto the source of the mind, to the eye or to the consciousness, then automatically all the variety of the mind by way of thoughts starts melting away, dissolving away. Dissolving away doesn't mean that the mind will become zero. It may become zero. But what it means is that you are unavailable to the variety. You are unaffected by the variety. Just like right now you are unaffected by what is going on in the world because you are in the satsang. Or like I see someone wearing a headphone, so you are not even hearing all the sounds that are going on in the house because you are wearing the headphones, undisturbed in spite of the sounds. So we become so focused, self-focused, consciousness-focused. We bring our attention so single-pointedly, or we become so available to ourselves that the variety which has a habit of hijacking our mind, our attention, is no longer able to do that. It may be there, the variety, or it may not be there. Variety means the waking experience and the dream experience. No variety means the sleep experience. If it is there or not there, it does not matter to consciousness. Now, this consciousness does not become, when it stops getting hijacked by the waking, dream and deep sleep, then it stops becoming the waker, dreamer and sleeper. It becomes the constant one. Right now we experience ourselves as the waker, dreamer and sleeper every day. We only appreciate the constant one in the satsang. It's not our direct experience, even though it is your natural state. We have to discover this truth about ourselves, that we have never come and gone. The waker comes and gone. So that means give zero value to the waker. Let it do its job. You remain aware in the waking experience, not of the world, of your own essential nature, of the consciousness, of the presence. With constant practice of this important sadhana, the world will be dropped. A spiritual seeker should be as businesslike as a businessman, never losing sight of his main goal wherever he is, whatever he is doing. So time and space do not become a hindrance in this abhyas, in this practice. No, I could not get up. Oh, no, this room, I don't know, the energy is not good. I don't know if I can meditate in this room. I need to find some other place. No. You are only creating all the hassles by thinking in the wrong manner. So we have to correct our mind. And the only way to correct our mind is bring its attention to the conscious principle. That is the sure, short way. How do you correct your mind every day? By bringing your attention to the sleep. All the problems go away by themselves from the mind. But you go into the lap of ignorance. We don't want that. We want to be to be the conscious one, not the sleeping one. So this So this practice does not require only a sitting meditation. This abhyas has to be 24/7 wherever life has placed you, whether we are hungry or thirsty, whether eating or not eating, whether we are comfortable or uncomfortable, whether we are hot or we are cold, whether there are likes or dislikes, whether there is joys or sorrows, whatever, whether we are people or without people, whether we are doing what we enjoy, mind enjoys, or we are not doing what mind does not enjoy, whether we are with relations or we are with possessions, whether we are in India or in Australia, whether we are Hindu, Muslim, Christian, does not matter. Consciousness knows no boundaries. It cannot be contained. See? Bring our attention to that again and again and again and again. Just like the businessman, he's ever alert. Even in dream, he is getting solutions how to increase his business. So he's ever alert. What is coming in, what is going out, how much labor cost, how much this, how much marketing has to be done, etc., etc., etc. Just like you are very aware when you are running a family, if it is a single income and it's not too much, then every dollar counts. How much have I overspent in groceries? Have I overspent in petrol this week? Have I been able to save like I saved last month or last salary? Have I spent more? Did I go out too many times for dinner? And immediately once you assess it, then you correct your actions, and the next fortnight when the salary comes, you are alert that this time I am not going to do unwanted things. I need my savings because I have to teach the children, they have to go to university, they have to go to school, we have to buy a new car, or we have to buy a new house, or whatever. So with so much alertness we plan our responsibility of our family. When it comes to the spirituality, why everything Bhagwan Bharose? Ya to live at Bhagwan Bharose completely 100%. That also we don't do. So the same alertness that a businessman employs, that a householder employs to run a household, mother is ever aware of, have the children eaten the breakfast or the lunch or the snack? Have you drunk enough water? Come on, drink glass of water. Every now and then they will call. If it is too late, go to sleep. So you are ever alert about your children. The man is ever alert if he is the bread earner and provider for the family, and vice versa. Nowadays you get house husbands also. Yeah? So same alertness is required with respect to this consciousness. That is my mind, is my attention leaking away into the world? Are my senses under my control or not? Is my mind happy or not? Is my mind at peace or not? Is it getting agitated? Is it getting disturbed? Is it becoming restless? Is it becoming sleepy? And more than all these data is my attention on Who is experiencing all this that just went through my mind? In whose presence all these experiences came? Who is illuminating all these experiences? What is the basis of this mind where the experiences are taking place? And we become again and again, we bring our attention back to the conscious principle wherever. So therefore now we are not being given any excuse. Well, here it is not an instruction, here it is Jnaneshwar Maharaj's own experience of realization. So he is reminding us that he did not make any excuse. He kept doing the abhyas of coming back to himself, the conscious principle, the solid space, the Chidakash, the Guru Tattva, again and again and again and again and again. Anything you do again and again and again, sometime it has to click. Even if it clicks with the last breath before death, it is a life well lived. We are not even ready to commit. We must commit ourselves wholeheartedly. When we do that, then it becomes just like that. Your attention will be with the consciousness. We are not committing. We don't have faith in it, that it is the place where there are no problems. It is the place where there are only solutions. In fact, it is a place which is beyond problems and solutions. Even Lord Shiva comes to take blessings of this Guru Maharaj, who is the eternal truth. Suddenly he is going in a different Jivapanace nitrase yavaya apuliye dashe Shiva hi muhurta puse jaya joshiyate. The pure consciousness, having attained the Jivahood, is the duality of Shiva Shakti, needs the help of the Guru to come back to his original nature. See? From our point of view, we talk about Shiva, we talk about Shakti, we talk about Ishvara, Prakriti, gods, etc. But we haven't come across any. We haven't come across any. See? So, how does the God appear, the Lord appear in our life? He appears as the Guru. And by listening to the words of the Guru Maharaj, by listening to the words of the Mahatmas, we are able to go back to our essential nature. See? So, if Parama Shiva, according to the previous chapter, if Parama Shiva himself is appearing as Shiva and Shakti, and right now Shiva is called Shiva only because of his relationship with Shakti. He has given importance to Shakti. He has given importance to the potentiality. He has given importance to the expression, which sometimes manifests, sometimes is unmanifest. Now, how does Shiva come back to his essential nature, which is Parama Shiva? How will he do that? How will he do it? Will he ask someone else outside? Will he ask the Shakti? And that's why we see Narayana, Brahmaji, Shivji, they are all sitting in meditation. They are contemplating on the Guru Maharaj within their heart, the Guru Tattva. And without the grace of this Guru Tattva, even Shiva cannot be the Parama Shiva. Otherwise, he's a husband. He is in relationship. See? So here he says, Paramatma, the pure consciousness, having taken the role of duality of Shiva Shakti, descends to Jivahood. He descends to who is different. When we are doing the chapter on Shiva Shakti, I was continuously taking the two positions. One was Shiva Shakti at the totality level, and consciousness, Atma and mind, the spirit and the mind, or the consciousness and the mind at the individual level. Shakti, Shiva's potentiality is called Shakti. The self's potentiality is called the mind. What is my potentiality? The mind. So mind is the Shakti and self is the Shiva. So when just like Parama Shiva identified with Shakti is called Shiva, this self identified with the mind is called the individual. Simple. Descends to Jivahood. Jivahood means he has accepted the he has got identified with the modifications. The Jiva, finding the duality overwhelming, wants to regain its original state of being, and therefore goes to the Guru and pleads, "O Karunya Sindho, ocean of compassion, I am drowning in this ocean of duality. Please help me come out of it." See, the difference between Shiva, Narayana, Vishnu, etc. and this individual is they already know that they are. That's why they are always in contemplation of their essential nature. What is the difference between Jiva and Ishvara? Ishvara is the master of his potentiality. Shiva is the master of his Shakti. And Jiva is a slave to his Shakti, the mind. See? This is the difference. So therefore, the Jiva finding, when this Jiva having got identified with the modifications, with time, space, objectivity, the variety, the multiplicity of this world, and when it indulges in that and takes the different roles, eventually he finds none of his actions is giving him solace, is giving him peace of mind, and eventually, and that is what we are doing. We look here, we look there, we look at other children. Oh, I think if my child becomes a doctor, then they will have enough money for their future and I can die peacefully. Now I have helped my children to settle down. What is settling down? See, our whole outlook towards it is corrupted. Should we help our children to have a peaceful mind, a settled mind? Or should we, instead, we say settling down means having a good job, getting married, having children? That is settling down. That is not settling down. We have lost the plot in general. Humanity has lost the plot. So here, the Jiva, by grace, comes across just like Grahasthas, when they become, married, when they get married, they have enough data of their parents, of other families, where things are not going right, and they see that these things should not come into our relationship, So they make friends with those people where things are at peace, where the relationship is better. Then the children come. Then we are talking about settling down. So we make friends, we go to people, we go to elders to take guidance. With regards to children. And because of our misconstrued view of settling down, then we look around only to those people who have made it in life by way of possessions, by way of money, by way of profession, by way of career, as if that is the only important thing in life. So then we go to them, they become our guru because that is where our attention is. And then we take guidance from them. What should I teach my children? What should I lost my job, what should I do, this, that. Exactly the same way. When we are persecuted by the world, we are getting disturbed by having got involved in the world too much. The jiva goes to the Guru. The Guru Maharaj who is teaching, or the Guru Maharaj inside, who is always with you. O ocean of compassion, O Karunya Sindhu, I am drowning in this ocean of duality. Please help me come out of it. Everyone wants to come out of it. Everyone is seeking happiness only. But where are we seeking? We are seeking it outside. And where is it? It is our nature. And even after hearing that it is our nature, we will still seek outside because of our habit, deeply entrenched. For this, to bring about a U-turn in these deeply entrenched habits where our mind keeps going in that track, regular abhyas is required. He says, the Shiva who exists in relation to Shakti and who has acquired Jivatva Bhav with its concomitant experience of relativity goes to the Jyotishi, the Pandita, who is Shuddha Chaitanya, glorified in the form of the Guru, and requests help in regaining his original essential self. See how beautiful. We saw in the first chapter, Shiva Shakti Samavesh, Shakti, the potentiality of Shiva, because of whom he is called Shiva, he is getting his identity, and he is meditating. And then Shakti is waiting. Arey yaar, what's the point? I am sitting here looking at you, you never look at me. So she tries tickling him. She tries to disturb him, doesn't get disturbed. He is deep in meditation. She doesn't want to get him angry also. So what does she do? She says, okay, I can't do anything with him. Let me do my thing. What is that? I will multiply myself into many. So that one Shakti, that one Prakriti starts multiplying into the manyness that we know as the universe, as the cosmos. And as she is multiplying with because from being one with Shiva, now she is going away. Only when she goes away from Shiva can she multiply. When she is thinking of Shiva, all multiplicity comes back into one. So as she moves away and starts multiplying, at the same time, Lord Shiva slowly starts opening his eyes. And when she has fully manifested, Shiva looks at the whole variety that his wife is expressing as, and it's so beautiful. And before he can get caught up in this beautiful, in that wonderment, there it is wonderment, there is no attachment there, it is wonderment. In that wonderment, he closes his eyes and goes back to his essential nature. But what does Jiva do? He opens his eyes every morning and instead of closing his eyes, bringing his attention to the conscious principle, he gets attached to what he is seeing, hearing, touching, feeling, tasting. This is the difference between Shiva and ourselves. So there, Lord Shiva invokes the Guru Maharaj to keep him detached from the variety that is there, which is none other than his own potentiality. So where are we falling short? We are falling short that when we are moving in this world, after we wake up every morning, we are not remaining conscious of our essential nature. Therefore we get lost. What do we get lost in? Gaunatma and Mithyatma. In the secondary self and in the primary self. In identification with the body, and that is the primary self, not the absolute self, primary self, the illusory self, which leads to the various roles, father, mother, daughter, sister. These are the secondary selves. And we lose the plot of life. And as long as we are the primary or the secondary self, there is only problems and there is only solutions. We are buffeted by them, always trying to make ends meet. And the answer lies within. And we are looking out to find answers, but the answer is within. Answer is the consciousness. And request his help in regaining the original essential self. It has never been lost. The essential self has never been lost. What has happened? It has got covered up with the variety. In you also, and me, within us, the essential nature, the spirit, the pure conscious, the eternal witness, it is never lost. In the wave, the water is never lost. It is always there. So within us also, this pure consciousness is always there. It cannot go away. Then what goes away? Our attention. Our attention goes away from that which is always there to the variety, and that variety is finite. There is manyness in there. So we become obsessed. Our attention gets obsessed, gets identified, gives importance to the manyness, the variety, to the form, and starts thinking that that is real. No child is born thinking that this world is real or unreal. We train that child. If we train the child that child must maintain his attention on the pure consciousness, then that child will grow up that way. Everything is okay, beta. make sure your mind is always at peace. How many parents say that to their children? Hardly, because they don't say it to themselves. How can they say it to children? See? The biggest service we can do, remind your children from childhood. Biggest service you can do for yourself, remind yourself that you are the pure consciousness. Don't deviate. Everything will go on. Everything will happen in life. All activities, whatever is meant to happen is going to happen. You cannot change that. But if this mind is at peace and you are at one with the consciousness that you are, then whether there is success or failure, you are undisturbed. Whether there is food or no food, you are undisturbed. Whether there is day and night, you are undisturbed. This is how a Mahatma lives. This is the story of the unlimited pure consciousness getting trapped in the limitations of the upadhi or conditioning of the jiva. So, we are not here talking about, you can take it, water as the Paramashiva, ocean as Ishvara, Shiva, and his potentiality the Shakti. And what is that Shakti expressing as? As many waves, as the many variety. So now what has happened? The unlimited pure consciousness, the infinite formless waters, getting trapped in the limitation of the upadhi. Upadhi meaning form or the conditioning of the jiva. So when that infinite waters gives attention to the beginning and the end of the wave, the form, that infinite waters forgets that it is infinite. It starts thinking, I am the wave. Exactly the same way. This infinite consciousness, which is the only material in this whole creation, when it gives attention to this wave form called body, then it feels trapped, it feels bound, it feels it is born, it feels it is afraid to die, it seeks liberation because it feels it is bound, and the whole drama begins. So now, how does this fall happen? Here it is told through the steps. First step. The first fall is when the Shuddha Chaitanya gets as if divided into Shiva and Shakti. The first step is when the Parama Shiva, the infinite consciousness, the pure self, the Brahman, as if divides, as if divided into Shiva and Shakti. Why does it get divided? Why can't it get divided? It is all capable. It is the power of all powers. It is the knowledge of all knowledge. It is the infinite potentiality within it. Why can't it? So the moment it invokes its potentiality, now it is known as, instead of Paramashiva, which was one, now it becomes two, potential and the potentiality, and with respect to potentiality the Shakti, now that Paramashiva is called as Shiva. Then the second fall. The second fall is when the Aham, subjectivity, is predominant and Idam, objectivity, is not yet born. So the second fall is where the aham is predominant and the world has not become, it is not yet born. Okay. When is this where is this situation happening in our life? Every day it happens when we wake up. When we wake up, we are all subjective. We all know our eyes are closed, body is lying in its position, Duna is on top, nice and warm room, and suddenly you know you are awake. The world hasn't entered. Even this idea that where is the leg, where is the arm, in which angle you are sleeping, is there a Duna on top, all this is not, it's not there in your mind. You are just aware that you are awake, that you are. Before you were sleeping, now you are awake. Sometimes it lasts for a few seconds, sometimes it lasts for a few minutes. Second stage. Third stage. The third stage downwards is when the idam becomes predominant and aham is still functioning. Watch yourself. The moment you must have woken up this morning, first stage was that you are with yourself. Then suddenly the thought must have come to your mind, oh my God, how long did I remain even after waking up? How long was I there in the bed? Today there is a satsang at 7 o'clock or 8:30 and I have to get up, I have to take shower, I need to be fresh, I need to do this. So now what is happening? We have given importance to, we have given attention to everything else other than the self, the conscious principle. This is the third stage. So aham is there. Without aham, the activity cannot take place. But now idam is increasing. The thoughts are increasing. We have to do this, we have to do that, we have to do this, we have to take shower, we have to do. I must be there before this given time. And therefore here it says, idam becomes predominant. So now, before idam became predominant, aham was predominant and we were aware of ourselves. But now, we are getting lost in the idam. We are getting lost in the objectivity. We are getting lost in the world. That peace that was being experienced by us when we just wake up, the bliss that was being experienced by us just when we woke up, and you want to linger in that bliss. So in sleep you were in bliss, now you are awake, but your mind is still empty. Only you are there. And the bliss is there because you are the bliss. And now the world enters, the idam enters, and naturally your attention gets hijacked by the objects. Now you are not with yourself. Your I is there because the moment idam comes, the aham also comes up as a thought. Before it was not a thought. Then the fourth stage, at the fourth stage, the aham idam become balanced. What does this balance mean? Aham looks for involvement in the idam and idam keeps hijacking the aham. And this is what is we call world. So the satsang was there, the scriptures were there, the meditation was there. The aham wanted to be involved in it. See? So everything is for the aham only. Satsang is for aham, meditation is for aham, body is for aham, relationships are for aham. So now aham feels that without idam, without objectivity, it has got no identity. See, this is the big problem. That is why it wants to escape. So when aham starts thinking or is having a disposition on account of identification with the idam, that my sense of being is only because of form, only because of the world. This is how people, individuals, they become part of organizations, ashrams, clubs, IT club, engineering club, IIT club, IIM club, Lions club, Rotary club, alumni. This is all we identify. So he starts. So idam cannot express without the support of aham. Idam can multiply only when aham is giving attention to idam. See? If aham withdraws its attention from idam, the whole variety called this world has to collapse. And that's what happens. The aham thinks of sleep and the whole world dissolves from your mind. Bring this about consciously. That's the next step. And the final, okay, not the next step, the final fall happens when the idam becomes important and the balance is lost. See? So I think balance, losing the balance will be where we get identified. Because this phenomena of aham and idam is a natural phenomena, it is going on. Then what does it mean to be balanced? Okay, I stand corrected. What does it mean to be balanced? Balanced means to remain equanimous towards the idam. The aham is equanimous towards the idam. And the final fall is it is getting identified with the idam. And now based upon idam, it defines itself. So these are the 5 steps. So every jiva struggles constantly to go back to the original state of being because happiness is our natural destination. All the individual efforts towards acquisition of wealth, enjoyment, and the path of righteousness are only to reach that ultimate freedom, that is perfect equilibrium. So dharma, artha, kama, what are they for? They are not for dharma. Dharma is living a righteous life, putting efforts to be righteous in life. It's not righteous to be the good father or the good mother or the good student or the good citizen. No, we are studying, we want to be righteous so that we come back to our essential nature, which is the ultimate righteousness. It is the dharma of all dharmas. We put efforts in satisfying our desires in this world. For so many decades we have been doing that. Have we put efforts in satisfying the desire that I am the infinite one? We are not talking merely about listening. We are talking about becoming available to that one. With the motivation or inspiration with which we live our daily life, at the for acquiring the world, for maintaining our relationships, for doing our duties, do we have the same motivation and inspiration to seek the self, to be the self in spite of the world? And wealth, we put efforts to acquire wealth. But when wealth comes, like I gave yesterday or day before yesterday, someone I know, they said, oh, when I have made $10,000, Swamiji, I am going to sit in meditation for good 6-7 months and I will, that's all I need. I don't want anything else. Now it's been 12 years. He's still collecting $10,000. First 10,000, then second 1,000, then the benchmark increased, no, 100,000, then he realized, because attention is outside. Oh, the house costs so much, the bills are so much, the rent is so much. So I think I need little bit more. I think I need little bit more. But when is it enough? Now coronavirus has taken the job. If he had prepared at 10 years ago, he would be at peace. Today, he is in pieces. Why? Outward journey. Even having $500,000, $1 million in your bank account is not going to give you the peace, because we have got identified. What is meant to come to you is going to come to you whether you get identified with wealth or you don't get identified with it. You may do all, live a good life, vegetarian life, doing yoga, pranayama, everything. When death has to come, it will take you. Whether you are young, whether you are teenage, whether you are youth, whether you are middle age, whether you are healthy, whether you are diseased, it doesn't look at all these things. It says, oh, his time has come. Okay. It will pluck you away. Pluck the life away. And we see around us everywhere healthy people, young people, just like that. But we think it's not going to happen to us. That we are immune. See? So, all the efforts, these are the purusharthas, the 4 purusharthas, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. When we put efforts in life, first we put efforts to study the dharma. Nobody teaches us, as I told you, the dharma of self-realization, the dharma of being the self. Everyone teaches you the dharma of how to make more money, how to get become successful in life, how to be ambitious in life. This is not dharma. How to do your duties. What is the duty? Listen to parents. This is not, this is, dharma is, every child must be reminded that they are the essential true consciousness. And if they can't keep telling them, but at the same time that it can be attained, it can be your nature, you are that only when you have a peaceful mind. So beta, throughout your life, make sure that you don't get disturbed under any circumstance. And then that child will tell, Dad, you are disturbed. So now you got a in-house guru who will keep reminding you. Because you listened to the satsang and you started teaching the child. Now the child is going to watch more alertly. Is Dad behaving the way he's telling me to behave? See? So, uh, mm, so we must, we should practice, put efforts in what is the ultimate right in life, what is the righteous way of life, how to, and based on that righteousness, we must earn wealth. Based on that righteousness, we must satisfy the desires. Not the other way around. Because what is meant to come is going to come anyway. So don't corrupt your mind out of greed for wealth, out of lust for your desire satisfactions. All the efforts put for dharma, artha and kam in the right manner will alone lead to all the purusharthas, when done correctly, will help you come to be purified within, and the journey, here he says, are only to reach that ultimate freedom, that is perfect equilibrium. So when we are earning wealth, we are not disturbed. When we are practicing our dharma, we are not disturbed. When there are natural urges, we are not disturbed. Eat, but without attachment. Eat with awareness. Not attachment, we eat with awareness. Walk with awareness. Love with awareness. Study with awareness. Fight with awareness. Get angry with awareness. Travel with awareness. Wake up with awareness. Sleep with awareness. Dream with awareness. That is the only mantra. Awareness. Be aware, be aware, be aware. And not be aware of everything what I just told. Be aware of the self. And one step before that is, before the awareness towards the self happens, you live a life of balance, and that is equanimity, where it says here that ultimate freedom, that is perfect equilibrium, where world is functioning, world is happening, waking, dream and sleep are coming and going. Equilibrium means you are not disturbed by it. When do we get disturbed by anything? Only when we own it. When do we own it? When we identify with it. These are the secret mantras to make our life a happy one, a blissful one. Everything must go on, because you cannot undo what is already you have started, or life or consciously or unconsciously. This is where you find yourself. You cannot change the people, you cannot change the political situation, you cannot change the health hazard. Nothing you can change. Then what can you change? Your attention you can change. Shift your attention to your conscious principle. The sadhana, therefore, I'll just read this and conclude, we'll explain it next time. The sadhana, therefore, consists in retracing these steps, whereby step by step the idam means everything other than I, whatever I gets associated with, idam, the objectivity, becomes less important. The aham idam gets balanced, which is called equanimity, which means that one lives in the world but does not forget to live for one's own pure self. You live in the world but do not forget to live for the pure self, means in and through all our activities, our attention is ever on the awareness that we are. This is followed by inquiry, can idam exist without the aham? When we have lived for a long period of time, then by grace this thought comes that all objectivity, all variety, all multiplicity, all otherness, all differences are existing only because I is there. This will lead to a... So now your attention from the variety will come to the I, the source, for whom all this variety is. Shakti becomes the variety for Shiva, not for herself. She wants her attention. Same way, mind is becoming into many to get attention from the I, that I am. If you give attention, you are Jiva. If you don't give attention, you are a yogi. If you are established in the self, you are a Mahatma. You are a seeker and then a Mahatma. So, next step will be that our attention from the variety migrates to the I, and then this will lead to gradual withdrawal from the idam and proximity to the aham, and the final experience of one's own essential nature. And as we keep contemplating on who is this real me, who is this I behind, who is this I who wants to experience all this, who is this I because for whom this variety is expressing itself, who is this I who also knows that the waking dream and deep sleep come and go, they are also variety, three varieties. Then within each variety, in the waking variety, there is so much variety. In the dream variety, there is another so much variety. But for whom? For the one who is knowing that there is waking dream, deep sleep experience. Who is this I? As we keep contemplating, you cannot catch it because you are that. You can catch something that is other than you. So I can catch this bottle because this bottle is separate to me. So I can catch it. How can I catch I? I am the I. How can the physical eyes see themselves? Not possible. See? But this contemplation is required. You are more focused on the, initially you are focused on the I thought, and eventually when no other, and you become steady in the contemplation of who am I, it automatically begins. It is not by reading books. When the idam becomes reduced within our cognition, we stop giving importance to the idam, then importance to aham. Then automatically this question will arise in your bosom. Who is this I? Where is this I? What is this I? What is its nature? Is it the one which comes and goes like a... Because as long as I am thinking of this thought, I, it's coming and going. But do I feel I am coming and going? No. Then who is this continuous one on which I am superimposing this I thought? So that means this I thought also I am not. And then silence. This is the migration back to the original self. This will lead to gradual withdrawal from idam and proximity to the aham and the final experience of one's own essential nature. This migration route of the jivatva bhava to the paramatma bhava is neither in time nor in space. It is migration in consciousness, by the consciousness, to the consciousness and for the consciousness. It's like democracy. Democracy is for the people, by the people, among the people. Same way. So when we read this, that it is the migration of consciousness, which consciousness? The mind consciousness. It is migration in the consciousness, the total consciousness, by the consciousness, which is the mind consciousness, to the consciousness, that is the self consciousness, and for the consciousness. So it is like, it is the migration of the wave, migration of the water in the wave to the water in the ocean, and eventually to the water that is infinite. So is there a journey required when everything is water only? Is migration required? Yes, migration is required for the one who is thinking that he is identified. Only where identification happens, then de-identification, that de-identification is called the journey. So this perceived identification is dissolved, and dissolution of that perceived identification is in terms called as the journey, or the coming back to your original nature, or migration to your essential nature. And this is all happening within the consciousness. So what does it conclude? It concludes that we are already the consciousness that we are seeking. But because we are identified with idam so much that even though we are always that, it slips. We are not able to abide in it. And therefore, we keep looking for it. Because of our objective nature, because of giving ourselves an identity based on something else, we feel, oh, I need to do something in order to be. We don't need to do anything to be. We already are. All we have to, and if we are aware of ourselves, the dissolution of the world from our mind, which means the dissolution of the idam, will automatically happen. You don't do anything to dissolve the world out of your mind when you go to sleep every night. It happens. See? Oh, only 2 lines and then this verse is completed. Therefore, the Guru Maharaj, who is the Paramatma Tattva, manifesting as Guru, is thus superior to Shiva. Now, when it is said about the Shuddha Chaitanya manifesting as Shiva Shakti and its further downfall, it does not mean that duality has taken place. So, from the one, when the water is expressing as ocean and wave, or the gold is expressing as the various ornaments, actually nothing has happened. Water is still water, gold is still gold. Similarly, when that Parama Shiva is expressing as Shiva and Shakti and the constituent creation afterwards, actually nothing has happened. Now recognize this about yourself also, that you, the infinite conscious self, when it expresses as the Jiva, because of it, this phenomena is going on. What is the phenomena? Consciousness expressing through the conditionings. This phenomena you cannot stop. Let it happen. Because consciousness is expressing through the body. If this is a phenomena, Why you have to get identified with the phenomena? You remain who you are. See, it is your phenomena. You alone are expressing as the consciousness. You are alone expressing as the conditionings through which this consciousness is expressing. You don't lose the plot. So it is a creationless creation. This is the experience, this is the abidance of the Mahatmas. This is the point from where, this is how Shiva or Lord Vishnu, when they look at the world, they look at it from this point of view. Because they have not got attached, they have not got identified with the potentiality. They see everything as their own expression. Mahatmas also, after having established in the self, their experience is, I alone am. So with this thought, we will conclude today, and we'll look at it a little bit, just the last part, we'll look at it again in our next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Sit quietly for a minute, and then next class will be on Wednesday.